What's going on, all you little oddballs? It is your boy Coreboy back at it again today with a new video, and we just got some Gears EDay gameplay over here because we are nearing the end of the EDay beta, and I just want to give my final thoughts on it. Now, I haven't got to play as much this week as I did the first week of the beta, just because work and shit happens. But I do have some takeaways from the second week of the beta that I do want to talk about. Now, while I will still hold a lot of my, other opinions that I had on last week's beta, there are definitely some things that do need to be addressed with this game. But overall, I will say this. I have had an absolute blast playing this game. It is so damn fun. The combat feels really good, except a minor, few exceptions in that, which we'll be getting into here shortly. But as a whole, I do truly love this game, and I think it is a good, I guess, kind of fresh start for Gears of War in a lot of ways. I feel like with the new generation of gamers and stuff like that, they've definitely missed a lot of key points in the original trilogy of Gears. So picking up on 4 and 5 was, I think, a little bit more difficult for people unless you're just looking for straight out multiplayer. But I think Gears EDay is a great starting slate for where the series can go from here. And as a whole, the game is just great. It's a lot of fun, and I love it. The game is just great. But we do have some negative takeaways from the second week of the beta that I do want to talk about a little bit more in depth. That being that being mostly the Lancer buff, which has been absolutely abhorrent in this second week. Now, if y'all don't know, the Lancer was a little bit weak in the first week of the beta. It wasn't necessarily that great, but it also wasn't absolutely terrible, I would say. But they did end up buffing the Lancer in the second week of the beta, and I really don't know how I feel about it. Now, for me personally, when I play Gears multiplayer, I kind of expect a Nasher fest. To me, that's always been a part of the identity of Gears of War is the usage of the Nasher. It's a very close quarters game, so it made sense to me that the main weapon you're going to be using is the Nasher. I know some people don't like that necessarily. They think it's stupid. But to me, personally, I think it's a part of the identity of Gears. Kind of like the same how I feel about Halo with a battle rifle or a DMR being a very heavily used weapon. It's, part of the intrinsic gameplay element of the game. Or for games like COD where you have an AR role and you have a sub role, and then search you have a sniper and such. There's these things that are kind of intrinsic to how multiplayer plays in games, and I feel like this Lancer buff takes away from a lot of it. I have had legit games, and I don't know how many I have had at this point, where I will spawn in on either of the maps, and the team is just sitting in the back of the map, just spraying Lancers the entire time, and it's pretty atrocious. I'm not going to lie. Now, when I heard that there was a Lancer buff, I was like, okay, that's not a bad thing, because I do think it was a little bit weak initially, but I think they definitely overtuned it. That went from a 75% or a 70% damage scale to a 75% damage scale. And to me personally, I think a good middle ground would have been probably around 72 or 73% damage. I think that would have been a good middle ground. I think it would have still, packed a punch, but at the same time, it wouldn't be overused like it is currently. It is definitely one of the more handy weapons in the sandbox. Now, with the retro Lancer, the Mark 1 Lancer as it's labeled in this game, I do think it's still really, really good. It's very, very powerful, but it's a little bit harder to use than the regular Lancer, so I kind of overlook it. It has a lot more recoil. It is really, really good in close corners fights. You can outgun people with Nashers with the Retro Lancer, which I do think it adds fun dynamic to the close quarters gameplay of Gears that Gears has always been known for. So I don't think it really necessarily needs some tweaking, maybe a little bit less damage, and I think it might be in a sweet spot. But I think with the over cumbersome recoil of the Mark 1 Lancer and how it is a power weapon on the map, at least on market, it's not on Outpost. I do think it still fits really, really well in the sandbox, and I really don't think it needs much tweaking, but the regular Lancer definitely needs some, and I also think the snub pistol needs some tweaking as well. It feels very, very weak now with that Lancer buff. I really loved the snub pistol in the first week of the beta because I thought it kind of, it felt good. It could outgun the Lancer. It had its own unique use, but now it feels significantly less powerful with the buff to the Lancer. Which I think is just a really, a thing that they definitely need to take into consideration. If you're going to buff the Lancer, buff the snub pistol too. or find a way to like kind of middle ground both of them and make them both feel useful in the sandbox. I will say one thing I wish we could do is pop heads with the snub pistol. I loved that in Gears 1 and Reloaded, etc. It's like one of my favorite things. It's just a fun little use of the snub pistol, but I don't think we necessarily need it back. I think it would turn some people off, but it's something I do miss. But I do think it could use with a little bit of a damage buff to make it just a little bit better. Um, but as a whole, I like I said, that's really the only thing that I think needs fixed in terms of the balancing scale of the weapons. I will say, to me, at least personally, I think the long shot feels a little weird in this game. That could just be like, where there's only one map with it. I don't get to use it nearly as much as I do in other games. At least so far. When the full game comes out, that might be a different story. But I don't know what it is. I think some of it definitely has to do with the aim assist in this game for me. Um, I don't know what it is with the long shot. Like it feels off. And I wish I could just toggle it for just the long shot, because the other weapons I think the aim assist feels fine. But with the long shot in particular, it feels weird. It feels so just. It feels randomly really sticky and randomly really loose, and it throws me off a lot when I'm using it. And overall, I think that could just use some tweaks. Of course, I wish we would have got more content in this second week of beta, but unfortunately we didn't. It's basically the same as the early access beta. I wish we would have got like maybe one more multiplayer map, and some extra additional levels to like Horde Siege, which I haven't touched at all in this second week of the beta because I've basically done everything in it. But as a whole, I think the second week of the beta is good. I hope the players are liking it. Now, in terms of actual like other aspects of the combat that I do want to see fixed in the whole game, in the full Gears of War EDay experience, one, the center screen shooting, I still feel off with it sometimes. It's really weird, and I have the same issue with Reloaded, where I know where center screen aiming is. I know where I need to be looking to hit my pellets, to hit my shots, etc. But sometimes it does not feel like it's true center screen shooting, and it's really off-putting a lot of times in gunfights. Like, as a whole, I've had multiple times when I've been playing in gunfights where I should clearly get a kill. I am center screen point blank with the Nasher, and I will literally just get 0 damage. Now, I don't know if that's an issue because of center screen or if it's a server thing. Either way, I do feel like barrel shots are significantly more consistent. Like, go play Gears 5, for example. While it is a completely different feeling game, and I will say Gears 5 is definitely easier, it feels significantly more consistent with the Nasher whenever I'm blind firing, and personally, I would prefer that. I don't really care about, I guess, easiness versus difficulty. Either way, I'm fine with whatever shooting mechanic is in the game. I just want it to feel consistent. And it's a big issue that this game has had for me, especially in the second week. I feel like in the second week, it's definitely felt worse as a whole compared to week 1. It's very weird. That's one thing I would like to see fixed, is a lot more consistency in shots, especially when I'm like sliding and stuff like that. There are times where I'm sliding and I will have my barrel directly pointed at the guy that I'm sliding towards, and my bullets will just go through them. It acts like I genuinely did not shoot the guy, and I think that is a big issue. Other than that, though, like, the game still feels really solid. Getting it more hands-on with the movement feels really good. It feels really fluid as you continue playing and as you start understanding, the flow of the characters, how they maneuver, the weight to them, etc. One thing I will say about EDay that I do love a lot is roll is finally like an actual fairly useful mechanic in terms of movement and getting out of fights, or actually re-engaging fights a lot of the times. It actually becomes pretty resourceful for the most part. But overall, it's really just a solid game. And I said this in my first video, I'm going to say it in this one too. If you haven't played Gears before, this is a perfect introductory point for you to hop into Gears of War. The game just feels really good. It feels consistent, when it actually is feeling like super consistent. Like, the game feels flawless. It's just those little inconsistencies do cause a lot of issues and definitely do take away from some combat aspects. Do I expect it to be exactly 100% perfect? No, but the consistency to inconsistency ratio does feel a little bit off. It feels about a 70 to 30% consistency versus inconsistency. I would like to see that definitely smoothed out a little bit. It may be a little bit more in some people's cases, depending on like ping and such, which, if we could see some server fixes, if that's the issue, I think that would be absolutely just great. But as a whole, I'm still really enjoying EDay. I'm really excited for the full game and to dive into all of the content whenever it's officially out, to dive into the story, to dive into Horde Siege, and the full multiplayer experience. I think Gears of War is truly in a really, really good spot right now, and I could not be happier to say that. As a 20-year-long player, it makes me really happy to see a game series that I truly love with all of my heart succeeding once again. And it seems like people really like it, which is something I didn't think I would ever really hear from Gears again, that people are thoroughly enjoying the game. I've always been worried about like the skill gap of Gears and stuff like that and where people would land on it, but this feels like a really good middle ground. It's not far too casual, but it's not far too competitive to, make people want to go away, which is something I think a lot of games have missed in recent years, where it leans way too far in one extreme or way too far in another extreme. Um, there's some examples with games that I do and play quite a bit here, and I've done content on the channel, like Marathon or COD. Marathon leans way too hardcore that it pushes away a lot of other players, while COD leans way too casual, at least in my personal opinion. And I'm happy that Gears has like a really solid middle ground. I've noticed while playing, I run into a lot of different people. I've ran into people who I've been playing Gears for a long time. I've also ran into people who were clearly brand new to the series. I know when I was playing ranked this week, I've ran into people like Icy. I've ran into Summons. And you can see a clear discrepancy, but it seems like, to me at least, it's not deterring people from continue playing and learning the game, which I really like. I just think, as like I said, there were some minor fixes that I would like to see in the full game, and hopefully we do. Either way, I'm still going to be playing. Of course, whenever EDay does drop, we are going to be grinding our hearts out in EDay. We're going to be going for max level. We're going to be, doing the campaign on the hardest difficulty, doing everything that we absolutely can do. Probably doing a lot of the metal grinds, which have been super fun to do in the beta. Like, I'm really excited for all this to come back, and I'm just excited for the future of Gears, and what this game is going to bring forth. I'm just overall, I'm very hopeful for the future. But yeah, that's really all I got to say in today's video. I know it's a bit of a short one, and I know I didn't get as much content out this week on the EDay beta like I wanted to, nor have I streamed it really at all. I've just been really busy. I will say we'll be streaming today, probably playing some EDay. Might hop over to Forza so we can, still chip away at our 100% on Forza Horizon 6, which I do kind of like really want to focus on. And then, of course, next week we'll be back to doing the Gauntlet, which I'm super excited for. If you guys don't know what the Gauntlet is for Gears, I will explain it here, just so you guys have a little bit of an idea. Basically, what the Gauntlet is it is me playing every single Gears of War game, starting with the original Gears 1, working my way over to Reloaded, where I have to win a game in each game in a row. If I lose one, I completely restart. I did get some inspiration from this from Optic Hitch's like COD Gauntlet, and I was like, damn, that'd be really fun to do with Gears, just to kind of like prep myself for EDay a little bit. And I think, are like 5 attempts deep now. With the closest we've got is to Reloaded, and like attempt 4, and Reloaded's inconsistencies, kind of came through and annoyed the shit out of me. But if you guys would like to stop by in the streams, do so. Come say hi. We stream here on YouTube most of the week. I also have some other announcements, but that'll be for the future. Other than that, I love you all, and I will catch you later.